Hello, this is Simone. I'm here with another ink swatches with friends video. This time I'm swatching the last 7 samples that I received from Pamela at the San Francisco Pen Show. And they are all Birmingham Pen Co. inks. And if I remember correctly, none of these inks I have swatched before, which is exciting. So I have Birmingham Pen Co., Cherry Blossom, Milkweed, Freshwater Bay, Smoke Box, I believe, Snowflake, Fox Squirrel, and Copperhead, possibly. I am swatching on 52 GSM old Tomoe River paper and Artist Loft mixed media paper cut down to fit a Rolodex. And I'm using my Kakimori dip nib and what are those? Cotton swabs, thingy-majiggies. So let's begin with Birmingham Pen Co. Cherry Blossom. Yeah, the talking is difficult. All right. This is weird, so let's put it here. This is a light. What is this? Mauve, maybe? And I am filming this at the end of March 2024. I still feel like I need to say 2023, but it's not 2024. Oh, do you see how this is? There's some blue undertones right here. Maybe you can see it here. And I just watched, I think yesterday, Lau's very long and extensive explanation of wet and dry inks and what you would use those for. Yeah, and so I don't even know if what I have to add to that discussion. I thought it was a really great video. I'm going to link it in the description box below. That was very well researched. And I find it really hard, some of the information that he shared, I was like, how do you, I trust him, of course, so, but it was like, how do you know this? What is, like, did anyone tell you? Is that your assumption? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to hear what your experiences are with wet and dry inks and wet and dry pens, and what you prefer. And maybe I am going to talk about that as well. I don't know. Right now, I'm like, I thought, well, I could talk about this because it's an issue that concerns me as well. But now that I'm actually voicing it, I don't even know what I would love to share about that topic. Maybe I'll just talk about what I have noticed or what I prefer. I definitely have noticed that many of the chromo shading inks, the lighter purples, like Sailor Manu Haha, Sailor Manu Neko Yanagi, Sailor Manu Fuji, they're all chromo shady, and I often have trouble appreciating them. So I personally like when my ink just flows out of the pen. And so I think I'm going to add Birmingham Pen Co. up here, and then I'll just write Cherry Blossom because they're all the same brand. I would just like to write. I don't want to drag my pen over the page. I don't enjoy when I can't really read what I'm writing. I'm mostly drawn to bolder colors. That's why or what I seem to gravitating towards. And let me grab my pen. And I really struggle with some of the inks. Birmingham. Let me just write this before I continue because I can't do both. Birmingham Pen Co. And for instance, the Platinum 3776 is a fairly dry writer. And so I always have to think really hard about what ink I put in this. And I'm currently really struggling picking that pen and having a good experience, especially the way that I'm doing my inking at the moment. Oh, this is very similar. I pick, if you don't know, I called it Project Ink Down, and the name is totally stolen from Miss Marilyn Darling, who completely does it. It's not the same procedure by any means, but I really loved the name, and so I assumed it, where I pick 4 random ink samples out of my Ink Down box, and these, or some of these, will be added to that as well. And then I pick pens to go with those inks. And so if I'm not 100% sure if that ink is wet enough, it flows well in a pen, I'm most likely not going to choose the Platinum 3776, because I often, in the past year, in 2023, I had quite a few unhappy experiences with this pen, and I really like it. So I need to be very, very sure that I want to use an ink in that pen for me to actually pick that pen to write with. Or I pick the pen and then I choose an ink from my stash that is wet, that I already know and I have experience with, that is wet. Then I will do this. And at the moment, I'm really, really debating with myself if this is something that I would want to put up with. I think I said it before. Or if I just appreciate the experience, or if I just am one of those, I don't want to call it lazy, but it's not necessarily lazy, but I just don't want to think too hard about all of these things, which doesn't really make sense because I always think about these things all the time. So what am I even stressing about? It's really, for me, it's really tough to differentiate. I put a dry ink accidentally or on purpose in a dry pen, and it's not performing well. Something else that sometimes happened to me last year with that specific pen was that I put an ink in there that I thought was really wet, and then the experience just didn't live up to my expectation. So that's another thing that's really tough. So I think this is cooler than this one. And what I notice when I'm swatching inks, which is absolutely not any kind of representation of how an ink performs in a pen. But I notice, even with the cotton swabs, how easily an ink falls off that cotton swab and how easily it applies onto my paper. And I can see a difference. This was, I thought, was wet, but this one was even wetter. With my Kakimori nib, they sometimes just don't want to fall off. Some inks, they basically don't, I always, it's probably, there's a physical term, which I don't know. I don't even pretend to know anything about physics and viscosity and what was that word? No, I don't even know it anymore. Oberflächenspannung is the German word. I need to look it up and put it right here because it's super simple. Sometimes the ink sticks to the nib and it's really hard to come off, and you can clearly see that when I'm making these strokes. These both came off really easily and they were quite broad. If I have a drier ink, I will hold my pen or my nib at the same angle and the line width will be narrower. And when I'm just writing, again, the line width will be narrower and it will be harder to write, and I will have to turn my nib more often to keep the ink flowing, which I find really interesting. People say you can't determine that, and you cannot. You don't know, is it super dry? Is it usable in any pen? How does it compare? I definitely don't. I'm not able to determine that, but I can differentiate between these two, for instance, and I feel like this one is a little bit better than this one. The next one we are swatching, or I am swatching and you're watching, is Freshwater Bay. And sometimes it's also interesting to see how they go on to the cotton swab. I wonder if that has something to do with how dense the swab is. Look at this. This is the first application, and then let's dip it in again. Second, and then third. So I believe, and I have that happen often with these lighter blue inks, which I just have an ink that is similarly light, not necessarily the same hue, where I find those really boring, to be honest. But these lighter blue inks seem to be just less wet, less. See, that's the other thing. Is less wet, the term less wet and less lubricated, interchangeable? If I'm not mistaken, then no, because lubricated would mean, but here's my assumptions. I did not do research, not like Lau did, or I assume Lau did. Lubricated means that there's some additive added to the ink that makes this ink flow more easily, which is probably the same that you would do when you would add white lightning or any other flow additives to your ink. After the fact, you can, for instance, purchase the White Lightning from Vaness, but I think there is, Birmingham Pen Co. has one, I think. I don't know. I heard that Dromgools or Anderson Pens sell one. So it's not just available from Vaness, but that's the most widely known additive that you add a tiny, tiny bit to your ink, and then it flows more easily. And I think lubricated ink already has that included, whereas wet ink just flows naturally. I really have no idea. That is just Freshwater Bay. I don't think this is as dry as it felt like when I added the first application to this card, because now that I'm writing with this nib, it comes off quite well and easily, but just maybe it's not as wet as the two pink purpley ones up here. But you can see, did you just see how differently wide these two strokes are? That's what I was talking about earlier. And so if I hold it really up, that's the narrowest stroke that I can make. Then this is Fresh Water Bay. So the experience that I have currently, that I have inked in a pen, that I was just talking about is, I'm gonna grab it and show it to you, is this one. So the Pelikan pen is surface tension. That's the Oberflächenspannung. There, we got it. The Pelikan M800 is quite a wet pen. And I inked it up with Sailor Manyo Neko Yanagi, which, where is my ink journal? So we are completely off topic right now. Well, maybe not off topic, but we're not swatching right here. Did I say Neko Yanagi? I meant Fuji. And it's a chromo shading ink. It looks different on different papers. It's pretty, but I don't enjoy using it in a pen, even though this is a really good writing experience as a writing experience. I know that this is a drier ink, so it's not gushing out of the pen, but it still feels nice on the paper. I really enjoy when I don't have to drag the pen over the paper, even though I really enjoy feedback, but I don't like when it feels like I have to work hard in order to move the nib. And this is not what this feels like, but it just looks boring. The color, to me, the color just does nothing for me, if that makes sense. So, and I've been really drawn to those colors for some reason, and I don't know why, because every time I put it in a pen, I'm like, yeah, well, okay. It's not like, oh my god, I love this, I need a bottle, this is so cool. I don't know. That's just what experience I have, and let me read this to you so I can continue working, and then I can talk. This is Smoke Box. Recently I noticed that I don't enjoy Ferris Wheel Press inks. In general, there's the rare exception, but in general, 99% of the inks that I have as samples, I don't have a bottle of Ferris Wheel Press. I'm lying. I have a bottle of the OG bottle of Ferris Wheel Press buttered popcorn, actually. And I received that as a D-stash gift from my friend Amy, and it is actually the only reason why it's still in my stash is because I offered it to Karina, and I will bring it to the San Francisco Pen Show, and then that ink is hers. Can you see how wet this is? How easily this came on to the paper? Oh, it went down really reddish, but there's some blue hints in here too. I'm curious to see what this looks like when it's dry. This. Where was I? I don't remember. What was I talking about? Now I need to rewind and re-listen, and because I have no clue what I was talking about earlier. This is what happens when you have puppy brain. Oh no, I don't enjoy putting this in and leaving it in water. I did this right here. Maybe I need to stop. So I decided, yes, Ferris Wheel Press inks. Generally, I'm not really drawn to these inks. I don't really enjoy using them. And so I decided I would take all of the samples that I still had in my Project Ink Down box out and just pass them along to friends. Which, if you've heard about my philosophy, that sounds so weird. If you've heard how I deal with samples, I swatch them. And then I look at these swatches and the colors and also consider how dry they felt to me. And then I decide, do I want to possibly ink them in a pen? That's when they go into my Project Inkdown box. Or did I do this ink justice? Did I satisfy my curiosity by swatching it? And then I pass it along. So I don't feel bad not using the Ferris Wheel Press inks in pens. Often those inks are shimmer inks, and I would love to use shimmer inks more, but I'm just not drawn to them. I like how they look, but again, same with dry inks. I really don't care for the maintenance that these pen inks require. And so I'd rather have less than more. And so I took, as I said, all of the Ferris Wheel Press inks out of my stash box and will include those in future giveaways. Now, here is where I'm leading to. I'm finding my way back to the point that I was making about the Neko Yanagis of this world. Maybe I need to go into my Project Inkdown box and take out all of those chromo shady, light blue, lighty, greeny, purpley hues that I was and still am so drawn to, and either make art with them or pass them along, and not put myself through the same experience over and over again. You know, that would be a smart move, right? Now that I'm talking about it, I feel like, yeah, when I'm done with this video, that is exactly what I'm going to do, because that is the only thing that makes sense, right? I have tried quite a few of these light purple blue inks, and for me, in my opinion, the Sailor Manu Fuji that I currently have in the Pelikan M800 is the one that performs the best. I think I had it in 2 different pens. I used it during 30 Inks 30 Days in September of 2023, and I can definitely also link that video. Now this, let's see how it continues performing, but this again, this feels really very dry, very saturated. Wow. That one, if you are on the hunt and look out for an ink that is like that, I feel like that one is one of the better performing of those. I've used it in 2 different pens, and both experiences were good. In the M800, well, I was like, what else am I going to use this for here? I was very positively surprised. It flows nicely. There's nothing wrong with the flow at all. It doesn't feel dry at all. It's just the color that doesn't impress me. So I can highly recommend that ink if this is a color that you're looking for, but you don't know which one to choose or buy, because you might have had some bad experiences yourself. You never know. BPC Snowflake. I also feel like I can deal with drier inks easier than with drier pens. I don't know. Does that make sense? Because, as I said, every time I recently put a seemingly wet ink into one of my drier pens, I had a bad experience. That was so annoying to me. And I can't seem to differentiate between the pen and the ink. So if I have a bad experience with the pen, then, oh my gosh, look at this color. And I have so many samples in this hue, similar but not the same, and I'm always like, ugh, swooning over them. It doesn't really matter which one it is. It's oh man, let's look back. I think I swatched Pennsylvania Slate. This is more muddy for sure. Oh, Troublemaker Bantayan Turquoise. Again, it's not the same, but similar. I love Troublemaker Starry Night Blue. And then we have the greens. I'm also really drawn. Sailor. This is totally wrong. 50 States. Sailor, 50 States, California is similar. This is a little bit more subdued. I think this is Heron. Oh, here. Andorilium Banded King Shoemaker Butterfly Blue. It's not the same. I totally get that. But it's similar enough to be exactly in that vein and to keep it because it's not similar to or the same as any of the others. This felt driest of all of those, for sure. Now, let me put this back here. This thing here, this Esterbrook pen nib thingy, is one of the most convenient notebook clips that I have had. I like those two, the Travelers Company ones, because they're flat on the back, so they lay flat and they don't lift up your notebook, but this one is really great as well. So that's why I currently have 2 pens on my consider to sell, and I really want to use them in April to make sure that either I want to keep them or to make sure that the consideration has become a truth. And you will be very surprised to hear which ones are those that are on my list. It is one, the Platinum 3776, Shape of Heart, Black Shape of Heart medium. Birmingham Penco Fox Skrill is the next ink that I'm working on. Curious if this color is what I expect it to be or if it's totally off. Nope, I thought it was more red. Because Fox, you know, Fox has red. What else? And then also the the Pilot Vanishing Point. Yep, here I said it. So what are my reasons for possibly selling those? The 3776 for sure, because I always make bad choices when putting in inks. I don't know why I have such a hard time finding good inks for this pen. And that's the thought process. Am I just too lazy? I mean, if I picked 1 or 2 or 3 inks that would work really well in this pen and I just used those, and every time I wanted to use that pen, I would use that specific ink, I didn't have that problem, right? So do I just go that route with this pen? Because it is a beautiful pen for sure. But it's also a pen that is, I don't want to, you know, I really want to use my pens. I don't want to keep them in my collection just because I can. I much rather use a pen frequently than have it in my collection and use it maybe once a year. what is that called? Fox squirrel. And so is that the route that I want to go with this pen? Or do I want to pass it along to someone who will love this pen more and who will give it a good life instead of it biding its time in my pen case? Because I don't know, is that what it's going to be? I'm in no rush to sell that pen, so I can totally make up my mind. And if I use it in April and I decide, oh no, actually I have totally forgotten how this nib feels and I really love it, because there are so many people who love Platinum 3776s, and I believe I was one of those people too. So yeah, so that is the one pen. And then I have a love-hate relationship with my Vanishing Point. I like the bouncy gold nib. I like how the ink flows out of this pen. But I always have kind of an adjustment period with this nib, with this pen when I use it. And I have so many other pens in my collection where that isn't the case, where I take it and I write it with it and I enjoy the writing experience right away, compared to the Vanishing Point with its click and the, where is it? And it's, I don't have, there's no nib in here right now, but to adjust to this, I always have to, it takes like 2, 3, 4 lines until I feel like I'm holding it comfortably. Plus then it's a clicker pen, and often it has hard starts if I don't use it as frequently as I should. And so again, convenience. Is it worth it for me to keep this in my collection when I'm drawn to other pens more? I love this though. Oh my gosh, that color. Isn't this beautiful? So yeah. So, and I'm also getting annoyed at myself with this, because when I'm always thinking, oh, maybe I want to sell this, Copperhead is the next, or Copperhead. I will look it up and put it here. It's Copperhead. I'm just deciding that it's Copperhead. When I'm, this is light. This is probably not for me. When I'm testing these pens, because I'm thinking of letting them go, I always have to forego those pens that I actually enjoy having in my collection and that I actually love using, to make room or to try those other pens again. It does look like copper though. That is cool. And that annoys me, and it skews my usage record as well, you know. Then I'm like, oh, this was my most used pen of 2024, but the only reason why I used it is because I didn't love it and I needed to experiment with different inks. So here we are. It is the end of March, and we, in this case, that means this person sitting right here, are thinking way too hard about first world problems. What am I saying here? That are not important at all. So what things are you thinking about currently? Fountain pen things are you currently thinking about that occupy your mind? and that you would like to get out of your head because they're taking up so much space. One of the reasons, or one of the things that I'm thinking about with these pens is how easily can I repurchase them. So I just sold yesterday, I sold my ST Sea Glass. Yep, I did it. If you were watching that one video where I was very much debating if I should let it go or not, then I did. And I don't feel any remorse. I mean, it's only been a day, so I don't feel remorse about that at all. But if I at some point feel like I am missing this pen from my collection, then I know that this is a standard line pen that I can purchase if I have the need for it again, if I miss it from my collection at some point. Now, maybe a limited edition pen like the Shape of Heart is much harder to get. And then I need to wonder, is it that specific pen that I want in my collection, this specific Shape of Heart? Or is it a Platinum 3776 with a medium nib? You know, those are both things. I can totally purchase another Platinum 3776 with a medium nib, but I probably won't be able to repurchase that Shape of Heart Platinum 3776. So same with the Deep Yellow. It only comes with a steel nib, and I purchased an additional gold nib for that. So those two pens are really, I need to consider those more strongly, more for a longer time than maybe the ST Sea Glass. And then I also need to think about, does it even hurt me keeping them in my collection for a while and not using them because I just don't enjoy them at the moment? And then going back to them in 5 months and loving them? I mean, that could be a thing too, right? So we started out talking about wet and dry inks. We diverted into selling pens and what considerations I do. All the while I was swatching all of those samples that I received from Pamela. I am going to give away 5 ink samples, and I think the ones that I'm going to give away are for sure these 3, and then I will add 2 from my stash, possibly Ferris Wheel Press samples. And these 4 I will add to my box. I really want to see what the difference is between these 2 in writing. I want to see how the Smoke Box performs and the Snowflake. The other colors aren't necessarily for me, and so I'd rather pass them along to someone else who will like them. If you have entered my rolling giveaway, there is a form linked down below. If you have entered already, you do not need to enter again. I'm just going to pick from those people that haven't been picked yet. I've been giving away samples from every ink sample video that I have shared in 2024. I usually give away the samples that I used in my inked pens, so my Currently Inked review videos. And then I do have some pens, and I am giving away pens as well on those review videos that maybe were gifted to me and I'm gifting them on. That I haven't used in a long time. I'm not drawn to them. I have better alternatives for those. And then every month I also send out an ephemera envelope with stuff that I haven't been using that month. And when I switch out my ephemera, I just stuff it into that envelope and then send it out. So, and that brings me a lot of joy, and that's why I do it. I just want to spread the love. I have received so many samples from all of you that I feel very lucky to make those videos. And I really enjoy doing them and passing along the ones that I'm not using. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you were able to journal, swatch, do something while I was chatting your ear off. Thank you so much. I will see you again in another video. Bye.